I was going to say good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of Putting the Human into Technology podcast, the FIT podcast. I'm Gethin Ellis, and today I'm joined by James Proctor of WJP Software. So, in a kind of a shift of focus now, we're starting to look at sort of IT service companies, software development companies, moving on from the non-profit bit. But James, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Hello. Hello, are you all
Hi,
right?
James. All good, thank you. All good. James, I'll dive straight into it, mate. Would you like to just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your company and what you do?
Yeah, so we're WJP Software Limited. We write software specializing probably in the healthcare sector, but we have some other little bits that we do some stuff for councils and local authorities and things like that. So we've got a range of products and we've got a range of solutions. But ultimately, the thing that really we sort of love and like playing with is data, and we love playing with data and making it in an easy way that people can use that data and that it can be of some use to them.
Cool. So just share a little bit more about the software you produce and the solutions you provide for the in healthcare and local government. I'd be
Yeah,
interested in as well, actually, James.
yeah, okay. Well,
What problems does it help them solve?
so healthcare, we're basically writing software for the pharmaceutical industry. It's around quality control and quality management, which sounds quite boring. There's a lot of zeros and ones. Basically, our main product is our microbiological reporting system. So whenever a you have to go into hospital and you have something that is made specifically for you, normally for radiotherapy or chemotherapy or something like that, that is based on your weight and size and all sorts of other factors and so on and so forth. That medication is made specifically for you within the hospital. And that's normally made in a clean room, in a clean environment. And they need to know, well, how clean is that clean room? And so what they actually do is they put out petri dishes, a bit like we had in GCSE science or at school kind of thing, that basically they put out for an hour or so and a growth lands on it. And those petri dishes have in things that help make the bacteria grow and so on and so forth. And so they'll put those out, they then close them up and send them off to either a regional quality control lab or their own quality control lab. That lab then goes, okay, well, I need to leave them probably for 5 or 7 days in a warm environment, so like body temperature, and then go, well, how many growths are there on them? And hopefully, in a lot of those areas, when they're isolated and so on and so forth, they don't want there to be any growths at all, so they want it to be zero. But there's some where they go, I can live with 5 growths, or I can live with 10 growths, and so on and so forth. And so they want to know those and what's on each of those plates. But what they're really interested in is looking at that data over a long period of time.
Right.
And so, yeah, a lot of it is noughts and ones. And yeah, there is, if something fails, they get what's called an exception. But they don't really want it to fail. They want the early warning of, look, it's going to fail probably next week because we can see there's a trend in all the growths going up kind of thing. We want to know
Yeah.
about that and do something before. Because as you can imagine, that actually, as I was saying, that synopsis kind of thing, uh, the the petri dish is put out as the medication is made, and that medication within a couple of hours probably goes into the patient. But
Right.
actually, they don't get a result on this for at least 10 days because it has to go away to be incubated for 7 days extra and then read and so on and so forth. So they're always working behind a little bit, which is why actually that early forecasting and looking ahead and going, well, how's that performing is really useful to them. So it's a lot of analyzing that large amount of data, and they love this thing as well called root cause. Where
Right.
actually has the problem come from? And so being able to work it out, whether it be from certain people, whether it be certain places that the plates are put are a bit dirtier, and so on and so forth.
So is your solution that entire process, James, or is it an element of it? So would they do that anyway, and you go in and analyze the data and show the trends
Yeah,
in the growth? Or
they do that already, and I think that a lot of and they've been doing this for years. I think a lot of the time they've been putting data into things like Excel and so on and so forth. Whereas again, there's no audibility or accountability. And we know that someone goes in accidentally, they're having a cup of coffee and they press a button and suddenly it's changed some results somewhere and so on and so forth. So they really were keen on this data integrity, making sure that can happen. They get inspected fairly regularly and they need to show this data and go, look, our room's been within these parameters, it's working as we expect. And so, but they want to be able to say, well, that data's not been tampered with either. That's
Mm.
actually, so it's showing exactly what it is. So I suppose that's where it came from, that it came a lot from Excel. They were doing it. And actually, it's then putting that next level layer onto it of going, well, A, it's standardization, and B, it's accountability, audibility, and data integrity, and so on and so forth. So it's looking at those elements that we put on top of it.
Cool. Okay, well, that, like, I think where we've expanded there. So that's the sort of the healthcare side of things, the pharmaceutical side. Tell me a little bit about your local government products and kind of where they where they do they fit side
Yeah,
by side with that, or are they related, or are they completely
they,
different?
they, they're related in a certain way. The other end of the extreme is the council stuff that is much more. They need to have councils need to have a website and they need to publish documents in accessible format and so on and so forth. Um, and again, we know there's these things out there like Wix, WordPress, and so on and so forth. But the people who actually often are running these websites, the clerks of the council and things, aren't really that technology literate. So having a product like that that can do anything and everything isn't always great. And they want something that's sort of scaled back and does exactly what they want. So again, we're looking at going, well, how can we simplify the process? If someone uploads a document, instead of it being 3 steps as you might have to do within WordPress, putting it on a page and so on and so forth, can we make it one step that passes through? However, where this all came from, which is the link across in some ways, is that we originally wrote a lot of web stuff for NHS pharmacy, again, because that was our industry. And again, because of their background, actually, they wanted audibility and so on and so forth, auditability, should I say. And we went, actually, I went, well, we can pass this to local government and we can give them the say what they need in terms of tools. But actually, we can put this extra level of accountability on, which a lot of the systems don't have. And a lot of the time, it's just hidden behind the scenes. It's not something they see, they actually have to do anything for. It just happens behind the scenes. But at least then they've got the full audit trail of what's happened, who's done what. And then, as I'm sure, I don't personally like it as such, but it's this blame culture in some ways that we've got into where actually you want to know who's done something, who's put something on a website. Whereas probably before this time, a couple of years ago, that wasn't as important, but
Mm,
now it really is.
right. Cool. So it's all about accountability and being able to audit that data and make it tamper proof.
Yeah,
Which I think then leads on to onto the second question I was going to ask you around how perhaps technology and data and your solutions that you provide have um, helped your clients achieve its mission. And I'd be, the auditability, the accountability is clearly there. And for those types of organizations you've just spoken about, the pharmaceuticals and local authorities, that's going to be a big deal. So clearly the technology and what you have provided, the wrapper that you have provided has added some value to those. So can you just share, like, I know you said it was in Excel spreadsheets before. How did you approach it? When you were putting your solutions together, what were you thinking about accountability?
but so I think the things with the likes of Excel spreadsheets, let's just focus on that at the moment. I think that's easiest. Is that there was a lot of um, duplicate or triplicate data entry. Okay, we'll put the data into one spreadsheet, right? Then we need to transcribe that and put it into another spreadsheet to create another document. And then we need to transcribe again to create reports and so on and so forth. And I suppose that it was going, well, actually, there's a simple way you can put that data in once. Then as long as it's released in accordance with, actually, you can easily generate these multiple ways that the data comes out. So it's all about data in once and data out in multiple ways, rather than going, I've got to put data into this, I've then got to put data into this, and into this, and this, and this. And it's this transcribing errors that was a big thing. And
Right.
so there was a lot of times going, well, actually, I need to put a 7 in this spreadsheet, but I need to put it in this spreadsheet, or I've accidentally put an 8 into this spreadsheet. It's
Mm.
as simple as that kind of thing. But because of that, and you can see even just me talking through that, you go, if you put the data in once, not only have you got that it's cut out that problem, but also it's sped up the process
Mm.
because you've just put the data in once and then you've reported on it in multiple ways. And I think that's something that, to me, it seems so ingrained, embedded, but I'm surprised how many people out there in business environments are doing that and going, we'll put data into this one spreadsheet, we'll put data into another spreadsheet. And I don't think as well, often there's the realization of what technology and what a system can do for them. So they're very much in the mindset of going, okay, well, this is what we do at the moment. Okay, we want to transcribe, we want to put this exactly into a computer system. You go, okay, that's great. But then there's the other added benefits that suddenly they go, oh, I can see another way that I can get data out, or I can see that data in a different viewpoint, and so on and so forth. And I think it's very much that they need to think about. I mean, uh, one client we're working with for at the moment, they're talking about calendars, and they've got a calendar per item, but that that item actually has other entities that it works with, and they're manually putting those in at the moment. So it might be a product and who created the product and when it was created. Well, straight away, you've got 3 calendars. You've got a product
Mm.
calendar, you've got a creation calendar, and you've got a who created a calendar kind of thing. And they're not thinking like that. They're just thinking, well, this is how we do our calendar at the moment, and not thinking, oh, well, actually, by doing that, by putting a system on it, that will automatically mean that it opens up these other opportunities to us.
Cool. And I guess my next question there is in the solutions you've put in, and this isn't on the spot. You might not have an answer for it, and this is something that have just intrigued me as we were discussing then. And you talked about the 3 different entry points from the analysis and the data you're providing. Have any of your organizations made significant changes to how they work and how they do stuff based off what you've shown them?
Yeah, they've made significant changes in terms of, certainly with ours. It's around a lot of it is around patient security and making
Right.
sure that the process is done correctly.
Yeah.
And actually, our software is then freeing them up time to make that process even better.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a double, a two catch kind of thing. That
Yeah.
A, they've freed up some time, which is brilliant, and the system does a lot of that for them, which makes it even better. But equally, they can then apply that time elsewhere within the process and improve the process. So it's a double win-win kind of situation.
Efficiencies for them. Yeah. Cool. All right.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Right then. So we've got your we've got your solutions that are providing efficiencies, and it's helped organizations in a number of different ways. So it's helped their sort of transformation. For you, what's the biggest challenge an organization, perhaps your organization or organizations you're working with, have faced when it comes to implementing perhaps new technologies, and how did you approach overcoming some of those challenges? And I guess this may have changed over the years as well, but
Yeah, I guess that the most obvious thing, which I'm sure is for everybody, is a financial factor. They go, yeah, we want this system and want this way of working, should I say? And then you go in and go, oh, it's going to cost X amount, and they go, oh no, I can't stomach that, and so on and so forth. But it's then talking about the cost benefit. But however, I think with us specifically, one thing that has changed massively is that we are an IT technology company kind of thing.
mhm,
Um, and there's been a change in technology. Certainly, the example I'm thinking of is with 3D printing. And you can
right.
see just behind me, we've got one of our 3D printers.
Ah, okay,
And
cool.
we actually, therefore, have gone further and going, so going back to this idea within the pharmacy, we want to look at those petri dishes and we want to take standardized photographs of them. So that then we can start to use AI on them and count how many growths are there on them and what type of growth are they. But more importantly, and I suppose first of all, is literally just so that customers can be able to see them. And again, something that we found from quite a lot of research is that people go, oh, well, I'll take a photograph of a plate on my phone. And then I go, great, it's on my phone. Right, how do I now get it? Oh, I need to email it to myself. And then I can email it to someone else and so on and so forth. So again, it's all about efficiency of going, well, actually, they can put they can put the plate into this, what we're calling the cube. They can take a photograph of it that automatically leads into their results, which their customer can then see. So they've not got those three other steps of I've got to think about taking a photograph, got to send it myself, and then got to send it on to another customer, and so on and so forth. It's all integrated, it's seamless kind of thing. But I don't think a couple of years ago, I'm going to say 5 years ago, even from our point, would have gone, you know what, we can manufacture that element and 3D print it, would have probably gone, it's a non-starter. We're not going to suddenly start going to a manufacturing industry and go, okay, can you create tools for this? And then we need to go through prototypes and so on and so forth. It just wouldn't be cost effective for us as a business, but then it means that we wouldn't be able to pass on a cost effective solution to our clients, which would mean they wouldn't really have a need for it because they'd go, I'm fine with my phone. Yeah, it takes me 10
Yeah.
minutes to send an email, but you know what? I'll live with that. That's better than something that costs £5 million, and it means that I can do it. And so I suppose it's that cutting down the cost and the entry barriers to things, both for us as a company and also therefore then for our customers.
Gotcha.
And I think that's the kind of way that we've taken a lot of things as being sort of disruptors for a market, and going, well, actually, we can do this at a much more basic price and provide what you need versus another company. And the ethos that I often give is, you've got Notepad, or you've got WordPad, should I say, and you've got Word. WordPad's the free version. It does everything you probably will ever want it to, actually. Word costs you a couple of £100. Yes, it does a lot more, but actually it does a whole lot more. You'll never even delve into those, a lot of those bits that it ever does. And again, I suppose that's where we're coming from a software development point of view of going, well, we'll develop the WordPad rather than the full version of Word. And so it's what our customer wants, and therefore our customers are paying for what they want, if that
Yeah,
makes
gotcha.
sense.
Yeah.
And again, in terms of being a disruptor, so we're talking about 3D printing technology, but again, I think that's because of our working within the healthcare sector and audibility, then bringing that back to local councils, that's something that they've not had before, because
Mm,
the people who have built stuff for them have never thought, oh, well, it has to be that audibility, or it would take us too much to do that. Whereas we kind of go, we've got that expertise and we've got that knowledge from working with the NHS. Let's bring it back into another market and again disrupt that market and
mm,
go, here's something that's quite a lot different. You maybe don't know you need it yet, but actually it will answer and tick off a lot of questions for you.
mm. Cool. Okay. Awesome. So very innovative. I want to loop back. I just scribbled on there. You're using. I think you mentioned AI.
Yeah.
And clearly AI is in the news. Has been in the news this week because it's DeepSeek has wiped 600 billion off the stock market because of
Yeah.
its impact on OpenAI and all that kind of stuff. But the generative AI, large language models type of noise that's been around for the last sort of 2 years. AI is not a new thing. Machine learning, all the sort of
Nope.
data science stuff's been around for a very long time. All the statistical models have been there for a very long time. How are you, like currently? How are you, or are you using AI in any way, shape, or form? And has that increased with sort of the OpenAI, Copilot, Microsofty type launch, and then Google, and now various others have followed suit? Where does it sit in your world, or does
There's
it?
there's two elements to it really. So we've got one of our staff who has they've been doing a master's degree and they've done it in AI technology, and that's kind of helped drive this project forward. And they've been looking at, well, actually, how do AI models work? How can we leverage them for our benefit? the problem, and I think it's this term
Mm.
AI that's
Yeah.
a weird thing, because at the end of the day, so we're looking at a photograph, for example, and we're going, oh, we can see on there's 5 bacteria and there's some mold or something like that, and that quite easily from a photograph it can work out. AI is clever enough to, or machine learning is clever enough to actually read the image and go, what's on that? I can spot patterns and so on and so forth. With AI, I think there's this thing of the sort of continuous learning and continuous improvement. And a lot of the healthcare sector, I'm going to say, are regulated by the MHRA, which we'll have heard a lot about on the
Yeah.
news. And they're a little bit scared of it because they're going, well, if someone's continually learning, it might be starting to learn the bad way of doing things. Whereas they're going, okay, if you can give us a model and then you can prove that model works in the correct way at the moment, then okay, in another year you can give us another model, but that model can't continuously learn every day in between, because they need to go, we need to validate it and prove it works, and then we need to validate it again, and validating it every day or every hour, every minute kind of thing would be pretty much impossible. And then what do they do if something goes, oh well, no, I don't believe that, do I roll back to the previous
Mm.
version that was a couple of hours ago, whatever? So they're very much, they want it, and I think that's where AI sometimes gets confused, that it's not necessarily about continual learning. And I think that the media brings a lot of these things to the forefront and puts a name to them. I mean, the other perfect example, cloud computing. Well, no one in the media had heard or talked about cloud computing until 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And actually, it'd been around for ages. That technology, it's not although anything changed really within technology. It was
Mm.
all it was that the media or someone put a name to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big problems that IT has, in a way, that someone goes and puts a name to it and goes, oh yeah, we'll talk about that more. And it's then it seems like it's this new thing. Well, it's probably not. It's probably something that IT professionals have been playing around with or using, should I say, for quite a long time beforehand.
Yeah.
Um, I think
Yeah.
that happens quite a bit,
The
unfortunately.
terms and the buzzwords are interesting, as you say. Something gets picked up, and it was, I guess, it was ChatGPT and
Yeah,
OpenAI and that
absolutely.
release that kicked off the AI revolution here. But it's not a new thing, Like, for example, Netflix have been analysing switch off rates of shows forever and bedding that into how they write their stories, which is why you end up binge watching all the shows, right? It's because
Absolutely.
they've used
Yeah.
the data to write the story, so you don't turn
Yeah.
it off. But
Yeah.
that's not a new thing. They've been doing that a long time. Um, cool.
Absolutely.
Okay. Brilliant. That so far then we've covered a load of stuff in terms of what you do and how you're going to use it. I guess
I
looking
think
ahead, and this might kind of. God, sorry, James. Go on.
Sorry, can we just go back to your
Yeah.
buzzwords that you're talking about?
Yeah.
I have found this is something that a lot of people in technology do. They find these buzzwords, or I know you do them, but they go on a training course,
Mm.
and suddenly they've got these buzzwords, and they use those buzzwords to baffle non-technology people, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And actually, those buzzwords don't mean anything. Like, for example, cloud computing. Realistically, all it means is that it's going to be something that's internet connected at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But they're using these terms, and it's confusing or the end users, and actually making the end users think that something's a lot more complicated than it actually
Actually is.
is.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I mean, I know that from talking to our customers, one of the reasons why they like working with us is because we're relatively straight talking,
Mm.
and we don't have a conversation that has all those buzzwords in it and so on and so forth. And quite often we get brought in as a sort of in between, that we've got the customer
A
and we've got
translator.
the, yeah, and we've got the customer's IT department, and we're
Yeah.
that translator that sort of fits in the middle a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
goes, oh, I hear what they say, but actually that's something really simple. It may sound to the customer like something really complicated,
Yeah.
but you go, it's actually a really simple thing they're wanting to do.
Mm. And
So
buzzword,
yeah, that's a side effect.
but buzzword bingo's a thing, isn't it? It's you can go and listen to a lot of conference talks. You mentioned training sessions, and we have got a training session on, by the way, so go and check out the website. But it is I think the value here, and this is probably something that IT departments and particularly in large organizations and people who work in data sometimes struggle with, and it's that alignment with business goals and business value and delivering sort of return on investment. And you said there, you talked about your clients being looking at the cost benefit of a particular option, and where you position your products
Absolutely.
in relation to that. And I think sometimes when IT and the business become misaligned, it's sometimes because they are talking different languages, and if you've got that person or organization that can do that translation and keep them aligned, then they can actually drive really good value for the business going forward.
Yeah,
But it's just having that alignment that's can be the challenge.
yeah, absolutely. You can't, yeah.
Cool. Right, James, I've got one more question for you about how you see the future of the software industry, the IT and software development industry in particular. And we've touched on AI. I don't know if your answer is going to incorporate that at all, but I'd be really, before we get on to the fun question at the end, I'd be really keen to get your thoughts on how you see the future unfolding for you and your software house and the
I,
industry in general.
I think it's difficult, and I think we're already starting to see it in some ways that you've got, I'm going to say, larger businesses, so your healthcare businesses, the NHS, and so on and so forth, that they run on a staple of uh, it's Windows 11, Windows Server, and so on and so forth. And realistically, that technology is relatively old technology. It's understandable technology, and it's going to stay around for quite a bit. But then there's these new things that are coming along going, I want an app for our iPad, or I want an app for our phone, or a website. So I think that there's now there's two separate markets. There's IT as it was originally, sort of the server infrastructure and so on and so forth. And there's this new brand of IT that we're going to do the more trendy, exciting things, which that definitely needs to happen. But this older market segment of that are sort of the traditional technology, that's going to be around for quite a bit, and I don't think yet there's any change within that, and therefore that market still needs to be serviced.
Right.
And I kind of think that's maybe something that's going to change over the next couple of years. That there are maybe now people going into technology are going into that newer segment of
Segment.
technology,
Yeah.
but that older segment is going to still be there, and it's going to be probably around all the time. Those newer people who are just coming out of university or whatever are their working lives. So I think that there's that sort of position to think about. I don't think always that some people coming out of university, not by any means everybody, I'm not generalizing here at all, but they're not taught some of or understand some of the older ways that things work.
Mm.
I mean, on a very, very simple level, just installing an operating system on a computer. Now, when I was a teenager and things, I played around with computers, and you take them to bits and you don't understand exactly how it works,
Mm.
and you then I'll put an operating system on. That's dead easy.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays they don't need to think about that. We think like
No.
the likes of iPads. You just press a button, it goes update. Right, that's done. I've not got to think. Oh well, what does that actually mean? How's it going to do that? What happens if it fails, and so on and so forth? How do I deal with that? And so I think there's that imbalance at the moment, and I think it's probably uh, I think there's somewhere that there's a sort of divide, and it probably needs to be brought back together a little bit of going, actually, we need to think about IT in general and how IT is going to work across the board over the next century, 50 years, whatever. It's probably not a century, that's a bit long maybe. But okay, if it is going to change, then there needs to be that stage change to make sure that things keep up with it. And
Mm.
I feel at the moment there's going to be a bit of, well, there's a lot of the old IT that sort of it's left behind. It's still got to stand. It's still got to be there, but it's going to be left behind. It's going to be this shooting forward, this sort of new sector of development and IT.
Right. Okay. So you've got that kind of split with the more traditional type stuff, and then all the buzzwordy cloud and
Mm,
AI, future. The way the you know what the kids coming out of uni. I say
mm.
kids. I don't mean to sound that derogatory.
Yeah,
The people coming out of university, um, are probably a bit more interested in. It's a bit more up their street, and there's probably going to be lots of opportunity. And I kind of share similar thoughts to you on that as well for the more traditional type stuff. That's not going to be the buzzword of the day, but still needs to be done. So
I,
that's
I think there's very much sort of again. I'm not saying, but at the very low level, in the 1980s, you got people who understood machine code and they were
mm,
able to write in machine code, and then there's kind of our level where you came out and you go, I can write pretty well in I don't know, .NET or VB or C whatever, and apply that idea to store procedures in SQL and so on and so forth. But there's now this element of sort of, well, actually, there's a piece of software that does a lot of that for you, and therefore you've not got to really know that level below, as we probably didn't need to know machine
mm,
code. You kind of went, it works, and it's going, well, they don't understand that beginning bit. A, do they need to, I suppose,
too.
and I think
Mm,
that will become more apparent over time. There still need to be some people who understand how to make that as such, but there's a lot more of, well, actually, I'll reverse engineer something. Something works out of the box. Okay, well, I'll make it work a little bit more for me. So there's much more of that reverse engineering
mm.
than engineering from the ground up kind of thing.
Cool. Cool. Well, James, thanks for sharing that. Before we get on to the final question, which is the fun question, actually, there's something I meant to ask you, and I wrote this down on I have a notebook, right? And I make notes extensively on all my day stuff. It just helps me remember things. If it doesn't have to
Yep.
go into my brain, it can go onto paper. And I changed books last night, and one of the things I wrote down yesterday as I was preparing for this was on your bio on LinkedIn. I think it says you started WJPS when you were in university or you were a teenager yourself.
Yeah.
And I was reading an article. It was a LinkedIn article about entrepreneurship, and this was actually, I think it was probably children doing A levels or perhaps GCSEs in it was a school in the UK, and someone had been there talking to them about entrepreneurship. So I was kind of someone who's also started their own business. Mine, I was 27 when I started mine. I've been doing it for however long now, 17, 18 years I've been running my business. But you were 18, and I'm just keen to find out when you started it. You clearly then went on to university and did your studies and probably
Yeah.
had a job.
Yeah.
How I'm just kind of keen to find the path and the transition. So if there are school
Okay.
kids listening
So,
and that have got ideas for a business and want to start it, and I want to know how you run it alongside your studies, and then I believe you had some other jobs
yeah.
in
Yeah.
healthcare as well, and how that worked for you.
So,
And
so, what- so yeah. So what happened is we've talked about healthcare a lot, and both my parents were hospital pharmacists, which is
right,
kind of why I'm into that. But I'm an only child, and therefore lots of my dinner times over the tea table, it was discussion about pharmacy, and I think my parents wanted me to become a pharmacist. And in a roundabout way, I'm working in pharmacy, writing software for it. But one of the things was that at A level, I was doing A-level computing, and I was like, right, I need to find a major project. And as I'm sure that many people out there do, they go, oh, this is a list of projects, right? Well, I'll pick that one. It's a library system or whatever it be. Whereas I suppose that I went, okay, and I was talking to my dad at the time, so I was saying, well, what would be really good? And he was like, oh, well, it would make our life a lot easier, because at the moment we're doing this all on paper. If this paper-based process was transcribed into an electronic process or into a computerized process. And so I put it together, never at that time with the intention of taking it any further. But then other people saw it in the industry and were like, oh, actually, that makes our process a lot easier. And that was the start of a business. So it was starting on a little project. And I started
Yeah.
WJPS when I was 18, as you said. Um, and I think that what I realized is I don't think I'd necessarily got that entrepreneurship in me to start with, although I sort of knew, look, I want to be, I don't know, I'm sure as everybody does, you want to be your own boss kind of thing. And I
Mm.
got a little bit of that ingrained in me. But at the same time, I was like, I've got so much to learn. And so I was able to go, actually, okay, I'll start the business up, but I'll keep it ticking over while I'm at A, at university. And then B, something that was really important to me was getting a job and going and working again in IT. I worked for a university as a project manager in IT, but again, understanding how that real life work works. And you look at my business now and you go, well, actually, a lot of it is based around how I worked at the university, and we're using the same practices that worked at the university,
Mm.
and so on and so forth. But I think the understanding and that grounding is really important, because it it fills in a lot of those life skills. I'm going to say, yeah, you may be a good programmer, you may be a good developer, you may be good at whatever project management and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of those little life skills that actually are really important and help you run a business without being um, well, with that understanding, I suppose,
Mm.
and thinking about, well, what is the impact on other people? And I think that so many people go into business and don't necessarily think what the impact is and what it does to other people, and if they've got people working for them, and so on and so forth. And I think that one thing that I've seen, that I mean, what I'm now, well, I'm going to be 40 in a couple of weeks, kind of thing. So unfortunately,
Congratulations.
but but so 22 years of the business, and that that's a real achievement, because you do see so many people who set up a business, and don't get me wrong, it goes really well, but they get to a point where they go, you know what, I'm happy to sell out and sell it to someone else. I've started that business idea and I've got, whereas I sort of want to see it all the way through to the end
Right.
and keep going with it, kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah, okay, it's maybe not the most profitable way. Maybe there are people who go, I'll sell this business idea and make loads out of it and so on and so forth. But I think one thing that's really important is that actually our customers are looked after, and our customers like working with us. And I want to continue that on. I don't want to be just going, it's totally nameless and totally faceless. It's just gone on someone else looking at
Yeah.
running it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
There's no right or wrong way of doing business, and like people talk. I get pinged on LinkedIn all the time about exit strategies and everything else. I'm like, look, I don't
I'm
want
not.
to
Yeah,
exit.
no, no,
I
no,
don't
no,
want
no.
to.
I don't. I think that's something that's really important. Certainly, if you've in the kind of business we're in, when you build up a customer base, how important that customer base is. If you've got as we're in the business of a sort of a business to business customers,
Mm.
actually, that's a lot more important than a consumer, because realistically, A, there's a lot more of them probably, and
Yeah.
B, they're not as important to you, I wouldn't say, in
Yeah.
some ways. Whereas
Yeah.
go, I've got a big company, actually that company is really important to me. They're a big part of what we do, and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. And I want to service them correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, cool, cool, brilliant. So on to the last question then, James. Now I normally get the person to tell me beforehand. There's a fun closing question. Which one would you like to answer? You
I
can tell
think
me.
I think it's the one, I can't remember the exact wording, but about what other profession would you do
Yes,
if it wasn't in
yes.
IT?
So if you weren't working in technology or software, what other career profession would you see yourself doing?
Okay. Uh, I do quite a lot of sailing and instructing for powerboating and sailing and so on and so forth. And I love doing that.
I'm going to put some context here. James lives up in it's Bedale, isn't it? Up in
Yeah,
North
in
Yorkshire.
Yorkshire.
It's a very picturesque part of the world. Um, Is it on the coast? I'm not. I can't,
It's
I'm
not on the coast. So I used to live on the coast. I used to live
right.
over near Scarborough, which
Right.
was on the coast, obviously.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time with my grandfather and bits and pieces messing about in boats is what I'm going to say, and I loved it, and I loved being on the sea and so on and so forth. And then over time, I've sort of kept on with that passion. I still one of the things that I most enjoy is just messing around with boats, being on the water. It doesn't necessarily have to be that I'm racing or anything like that. I just enjoy it. It's a nice, it clears my brain kind of thing, and I do quite a lot of teaching to do with it, teaching people to sail, teaching people to powerboat, and so on and so forth. And I, again, it's probably the same as with IT, that I like the enjoyment of taking them from one position to another position and them going, oh, I never knew I could do this. That's
Mm.
really good. That's exactly the same, I suppose, as in IT, that you go, well, here's a piece of software. Oh, I never knew it could do that. And again,
Yeah.
it's that wow, that's really good, and that's what I thrive on, I suppose. But yeah, being outdoors, doing that in all sorts of weather, that's the thing I'd really like to do if I could do anything else, and a totally different away from IT kind of thing. Um, I do at the moment take bits of IT into it because I do a lot of sort of management of training and so on and so forth. And so yeah, there's bits and pieces you can take A from business, B from IT, and so on and so forth that you can apply to that. But yeah, I think just being out there on the water, playing around with boats, messing around. I think it's Toad in Wind in the Willows that sort of says there's nothing better than messing around in boats. There isn't.
Brilliant answer. Thank you, James. And that brings us to the end of the episode. James, you've been a great guest. Thank you for sharing all your insights, particularly around the sort of entrepreneur startup type stuff. I was keen to ask you some of those questions. But thank you very much for being a guest, James. It's been a pleasure having you on.
No, thank you. Thank you for the time.
You're very welcome. And for everybody else listening, thank you all very much. We'll see you again soon.